You came here in international conference on a spiritual paradigm for surmounting global management crisis. What's your first reaction?
Well, my first reaction is that I'm very impressed with the level of expertise, the people who are speaking here, the high level of obvious academic background of your institution here. So I was very impressed coming across the ocean and seeing this here. I believe that the people that I've spoken to seem to take this as a very serious issue. It's a very serious issue. Our world is in crisis. Our economy is in crisis. The entire global, everything is just going down very rapidly, and we're trying to find ways to have a solution to that. And so my feeling is that India in itself as a country is on the forefront of this issue. I've traveled all around the world, and every time that I hear someone saying that there is somebody addressing this, speaking about it, seems to come from here. And so this is something you can be very proud of.
So you have wide experience, and we are finding that spirituality has to be defined to let it be understood by the masses. How do you define spirituality?
Well, that is a tough and a difficult question because different people define it differently. But for me, I would say that spirituality is the core principle, the core connecting thread between each and every one of us and the sacredness of our connection with the divine. We see that in many different ways in different cultures, but in the end, it's the same thing. We have a saying in my tradition that you can call a tree a bird, but it's still a tree, and that truth and perception are not the same thing. And so spirituality for me is truth. It's the ultimate truth that each and every one of us are joined by.
The way the economic prosperity was supposed to be increased after the imposition of globalization, or you can say the acceptance of globalization as a model throughout the world. Most of the countries accepted it after socialism breakdown in certain countries. But in 20 years or 2 decades of period, there are certain side effects are coming up. The have and have-nots, the society has widened its gap. Do you think spiritualism can be a better solution for it?
I definitely think so. To begin with, if you have a good spiritual paradigm, we should see each human being as being like a piece of a puzzle, and as each piece connects to the other piece, it makes the whole of the puzzle, and any missing piece leaves the puzzle incomplete and non-functioning overall. I think that we each have a fiduciary duty to one another as pieces of the puzzle to all join together to make a better world. And in our world, there is no one who is above or below. In the end, I guess I could sum it up. I had the experience here of immersing myself in the Ganges, in the river. And when I was there, I came to realize that everything, in the end, comes to the river, and everything comes from it. And so no matter who we are or what our particular beliefs are or anything else like that, the bottom line is we're all connected, interconnected. And I think we just need to change the paradigm to where we include all of the people instead of only some of the people. I believe that the old idea that everything's a commodity, kind of like God gave us the world and we can just do whatever we want with it, is not a good model to move forward. I think that we all need to work together in brotherhood as a family and find ways to make a better planet and to find better models. And I have great faith in humanity, but more so, I have great faith in divinity that we'll find the solution.
But the people, the understanding is very weakened, and whatever is happening due to greed, lust, it is increasing day by day. And even the various nations, they have their different thoughts about it, like US, from where you are. It has given a lot of things to the world, but this time the crisis which developed itself in US, don't you think that there is a realization even in your own country that we should find the answer to the kind of lust and greed is increasing due to the economic requirements of the need?
Absolutely. I think this needs to be addressed in my country first and foremost. and then in all the countries of the world. It's the whole core principles that we're following that are off kilter, off track. And I believe we need to return to a more spiritual center and think about values, education of values, return to morality. Why is it that we're all striving, and what are we striving for? If all we're striving for is to get more than the other person, what is that? I mean, in the end, when you're all done, all that stuff doesn't mean very much. And I would comment that I've met many successful people who are unhappy. So many people are taught at a young age that if you really succeed in a big way and get everything else everyone else doesn't have, that you'll find happiness. And I can tell you from traveling around the world, this is not true. Happiness comes from within.
Yes.
So we must begin first by finding the right way to live within ourselves, and then to reflect that to the rest of the world. If every human being would do that, we wouldn't have a global crisis, we wouldn't have an economic crisis, and we wouldn't have the great disparity between some people and others. There's a myth in my experience. The myth is that there isn't enough for everyone, but there is. It's a matter of learning how to share it.
The way the things you are talking about, the education, the values, the ethics, this something looks to be a concept, or you can say a theoretical aspects. How it can be made practical so that the realization would be more authentic and justified?
Well, I think that values are based on reality. I mean, we all speak of values as being shared with us from various religious texts and ways of learning, and I believe those are excellent ways of getting them. But in the end, you can look at the world, you can look at your actions, and you can look at the consequences of your actions. I like to say if say there was a made-up spirituality or religion or way of going, and we called it Religion X, and that belief said, every Friday we cut down one tree as a way of honoring us and our connection with the divine. One day there would be no more trees, there would be a lot of pollution and bad air, and nothing good would come of this. And so our values need to be based on things that we can see. When you teach your children well, they grow up well. They do well. Their children learn things and do well. If you don't teach your children anything at all, and you don't reflect to your friends the values that you stand for, and you don't speak up for the values that you believe are important, then things stay the way they are, static, stagnant. And stagnant things do not grow. They're not fertile. They're dead,
Yes, definitely. When we talk about education, what method should be adopted so that a very universalized sort of system can be used so that spirituality, value and ethics can be integrated in for the well-being of the common masses?
Well, I think that a new model, for some people this is an old model,
yes,
but the new model overall needs to be one that incorporates the voices of those who are connected with spirituality. There is ancient wisdom in our world from people who have observed for thousands of years what happens and how we interact with each other. And I think that wisdom needs to be brought forward and shared. It doesn't have to be the whole of how we move forward, but it has to become an integral part of the whole. And right now, much of the way we do business and that we think about interacting between countries and other things like this are often the consequence, even wars and such, are the consequence of not incorporating these values together. And so I think what we need to do is everybody needs to look around. You just turn around and look. Things are not going well. And when they're not going well, a smart person says, okay, what do we have to do? And that hasn't been happening. Even in my country, for example, not too many people are addressing this. People are addressing it by, we can resolve the crisis by moving the money from here to there, or by selling more of this, or by trading with this other person. But this is not the problem. The problem is the core values that underlie that trading and the way that we move forward. There needs to be a change. I see it coming. And the young people I met here particularly, they're the hope of the future because they hold the future in their hands. But we have to give them the values. We have to show them the way.
Mostly it is considered, yesterday we had a famous film director, Mahesh Bhatt, came here, and he was saying that spirituality is not sellable. That's why it is not acceptable. And the people, even in US, he gave a very simple citation which we everyone understand, that for war industry, a lot of engineers, doctors, or you can say the scientists are involved. And US if you are talking about spirituality, what is happening in Iraq and other places, US is having a war and earning a lot of money. So if it is not sellable, spirituality is not sellable, then how it will attract the people?
Well, I think that it is... Part of the problem is there's a lot of public relations about promoting the absence of spirituality. And no offense to the media, but so much is said about how we can aspire to get all the things we're trying to get, and not much talked about the spiritual nature and connection of it. And even something like my own country, the United States, where people say, oh, everybody is so successful, they all have a car, they're traveling around, they're doing all these things. I live in the United States. It is crumbling. Yes. And so it's a false idea to look at that and say the crumbling place is the ideal. We don't want a crumbling place. We want a city that is built and strong on a foundation that will stand for all time. And in order to do that, we really need to come together, not be separate individuals fighting. Today on my way over here, there was a conversation between a couple of the people in the car, and they recounted a little story that I've heard before, very short, and that is that if you put a lot of crabs in a bucket. Yes. Crabs are all for themselves. They will all try to climb out of the bucket, but you don't need to put a top on the bucket when you're going to take them to market to eat, because they will pull one another down to try to climb over the top of one another, and none of them ever get out of the bucket. And this is where we are now. We need to not follow the advice of crabs. We need to follow the much larger advice and wisdom of that which guides all of creation.
When you talk about wisdom, spirituality, value, ethics, this US, your own country, is looking towards India for some suggestions?
Yes, this is true. Many people in my country recognize that, India is probably one of the oldest centers of the world to look at the idea of spirituality and what it means and connectedness. I think the thing that is so impressive to me in coming to India is the incredible diversity of spirituality, and yet it's all connected in the same. I can walk any place in India and say namaste, and everyone knows what I mean. We're connected here. Yes. This is not true where I come from, and it's not true in many parts of the world. It's getting better. So people are looking to places like India to try to, what is it? How did you find this? What is it? How do we find it? And a lot of the young people particularly are seeking this. I think it's a good thing, and I think it bodes well for the future.
In fact, the way materialism has increased in the world, now, is it true that West is now looking for the solution of it, that how to overcome the materialism?
Well, I would say it's split between different factions, just like a lot of politics are in the world. Many people are looking for a way to break out of that, that shell and move into a place where it's more holistic for all of the people. Particularly the young people are looking to break out of that shell. So what's happening is many of the older people are stuck in a narrative they can't get out of, but the young people don't want to stay there. I was at a meeting in another country, not the U.S., where the young people were invited for the very first time to the table to talk about war and difficulties in the Middle East. And all of the older people, like me, all talked and gave our ideas. And when they approached the young people and said, "What do you think?" the man who spoke for the young people said, "You guys need to all get over it. We all live together. I'm on Facebook with my friend in India or in Pakistan or in, China.
Yes.
I know that not everyone in the world is evil and bad and that I should get what they have and everything. Instead, we're all brothers and sisters. We're very close. And I think there's a lot of wisdom in that, what those young people had to say. My guess would be that they will do it if we don't.
Okay. So now we organize a conference. What would be your suggestion? What should be our next step to increase the level of understanding or you can say the next level for us?
Well, I think the most important, I've had the opportunity to be able to go to conferences, both speak and listen to people from all over the world now. And I think the most important thing that each of us putting conferences and going these ideas need to take on is to put talk into action. So many of us talk about what it is that we think should be done, and we do affect change because we affect the people who listen. But there needs to be some actual structuring of some specific projects to move forward. Here at your school, perhaps get students to get together and make a project of we're going to do this, and then set up a team. They're learning management. Let's see how well they can manage that. I think it would be a good exercise, and it would be a good example for other people to follow.
So final question to you. How do you find the conference, and anything else you want to suggest us?
Well, as I said when I opened, I find everything about this to be first class. You understand? This is very well put together. It's a beautiful place to meet. It's very well organized. The people who you have speaking are authorities on what they're speaking about. Many of them have deep wisdom to share, and you have some very, very bright students here. I spoke to some of them. And it seems that the administrators here and the people who teach are very anxious to turn out good students who will be successful and make a better world. So I think you're on the right track.
Thank you, sir, for your valuable time you have spent with us. Thank you.